Good morning.
It is.
I have created a situation in my life which I find is untenable. Over the past several months, I have been beating the drum for discomfort and pain. As a consequence, underneath, there's lots of anger bubbling up. My real question is, how do I reach for joy when I'm suffering pain? How do I go through it?
First, we're going to give you the big picture, and then we're going to walk right through with you where you are. The big picture is there is something bubbling under there that precedes the pain.
Indeed.
In other words, when you want something and you're focused in a way that is not allowing it, the vibrational contradiction feels like uneasiness to you. And if you keep doing that, then it feels like physical sensation. And if you keep doing it, it moves from emotion actually to physical discomfort. And if you keep doing it, the physical discomfort becomes more. So we just want to begin by lightly saying to you that the pain very well did precede the anger. But there was something like anger that preceded the pain. And so it's sort of not such a different vibration one from the other. But we want to say to you here and now that it is not so important that you go back and figure out what was happening which preceded the pain. What's more important is that you stand where you are and figure out what now feels a little better than the pain. There was a vibration of anger and frustration. Deeper than that, anger and maybe even despair. We're aggravating it and exaggerating it a little bit, but we're talking about emotion that preceded the pain, which precedes the anger. And so those vibrations are not so different from one another. So we would like to say sustained, strong negative emotion and pain very close to one another vibrationally. And anger, coming out the other end of it, close to it too, but there is an improvement in those vibrations. In other words, the anger that you are feeling about the pain is a sort of self-surviving attitude that actually is a bridge. So if you don't beat up on yourself for being angry about the pain, you've made progress. If you beat up on yourself as you are angry about the pain, or angry that you're not able to manage your anger or manage your pain, then you just keep moving back and forth in all of this. It's sort of like someone going to a counselor. And this person has these habits of thoughts that they've had for a long time. They don't even know that they are habits of thought. They're so comfortable and used to thinking the thoughts. And so they've managed to bring themselves into a situation where their life is sort of a mess. And then they go to the counselor, who then points out to them that their life is a mess. And what we're saying is that does no good.
Indeed.
To know that you're not where you want to be and then have someone point out that you're not where you want to be is not really the best bridge. If you could say, the anger that I'm feeling about my pain and discomfort is my self-surviving mechanism because there is a little relief in that anger from the pain. And then just live with the anger with the intention of moving the anger to something that feels a little less angry. Because you can beat the drum of something that you're really angry about and bridge to something that you're less angry about rather easily. Now, if you want to, we'd like to talk to you about the things that make you angry. So, of things that you've been thinking about and noticing in your world, what is the strongest point of anger?
I seem to have lost control of my life.
You went right to it. That is so very good. You see, you are freedom-seeking beings, all of you.
Yes.
And there is nothing that is a deeper, darker, more resistant vibration than the feeling of powerlessness. The feeling that you do not have control. Now, of course, we're here to remind you that you have absolute control, but you can't hear that and feel the relief of that when you are in this place where you've kind of convinced yourself that you are without power or control. So we're not going to try to get you to bridge all the way over to the bright, sunshiny place that we know is possible. Instead, we would like you to tell us, if you don't mind, what loss of control is bothering you most of all.
I've been retired for nearly 5 years, and it's a matter of being home all the time, of not seeming to have things that fulfill what I need.
Well, now you're off the subject just a little bit, and that's a self-surviving mechanism too. But what is it that makes you feel out of control?
My wife makes the decisions.
What else? Is there plenty of money? Is the economy supporting you and assisting you?
Well, the reserves are being depleted, and I would like to build them back up. But there is money there.
When you say, I feel that I have lack of control in my experience,
right,
and then you say, my wife makes all of the decisions. Now, there are many who would say, well, she's the problem. In other words, she just makes him nuts. She's the problem. And what we would rather say to you, because this is really the way that it is, she is the bridge, because it does feel better for you to be angry at her than it does to accept that you are not in control of your own experience.
That is very true.
Sort of like you've stepped into her world. She had this world going all along, and her world was working and still is. Your world was a different world, which stopped working for whatever reason, and now you've stepped into her world that is working. You've sort of buggered her world up a little bit, we have to say to you, but she's coping with it rather well. And it is a bridge for you to just feel annoyed about that. And so, now we're making little progress here, even though we're causing a lot of marital problems in the process. So,
none that we're not there already.
Now let's talk about this feeling of lack of control. And we're not, for a moment, trying to talk you out of feeling lack of control, because that's a bridge that you will make over a longer period of time than this. But we want to appeal to your logic and ask you, do you really feel like you have no control? Does your say count for nothing?
No, that's not true. My say does count.
It does, doesn't
but
it? And
the
so
consequences are the things that, often make me feel that I should not make a decision.
But what we are wanting you to begin saying, rather than, my wife makes all of the decisions, begin saying, my wife makes most of the decisions, and she does very well with them, but I am not without decision. And when things really matter to me, my wife takes into consideration my decisions. Now, is any of that true?
Yes, she does.
So, you were beating a drum a little bit unfairly. And the reason that you are beating the drum is because there are other areas of your life that are out of control. And we want to say to you, we don't think that it is a wrong thing or a bad thing that you are upset with your lack of control in your relationship or in your home. We think that that was just an easier, better feeling vibration. And we applaud you in that anger. But now we say to you, that anger is not serving you very well. So you were angry about things that were not very important. And you sort of harbored that. It's sort of like Esther feeling a little overwhelmed. She will say to Jerry, there's this underlying overwhelmment that I've just got to get loose of. It doesn't play a big part in her life. She has a magnificent life by most standards, but she can feel that there's this little rumble of that she would be better off without. So you had a sort of rumble going on within your experience that you didn't deal with, and then it turned into something that you're now calling pain. And now, as you reach for frustration or anger, which will actually bridge you out of it, before you know it, you'll sort of be back to the vibration that you were pre-pain, before the pain. Only the difference is, now the pain is there, the pain is now playing a factor. So you don't know you've made progress, because the pain doesn't go away altogether or all at once. And so you don't know that you've made progress, even though we can feel vibrationally that you have. Take solace in your anger and pat yourself on the back because it was a better bridge, and then say to yourself, I can move beyond this anger, because this anger is sort of what got me into the pain to begin with. And if I can move beyond this anger, in other words, if I can find humor in this, you just did with us, if I can find a little humor here, and I can find a little annoyance there, before you know it, you start feeling control, because we know that the lack of control you feel is about how you feel. The lack of control that you feel is, I don't want to be mad, and I'm mad, and now I'm mad about being mad. And I don't want to feel pain, but I feel pain, and now I'm mad about feeling pain. When you deliberately feel mad instead of feeling depressed, and you know that you have consciously made that decision, you're back in control. When you deliberately feel annoyance instead of anger, even though you're not where you want to be, you're back in control. It's sort of like Jerry and Esther. listening to Magellan and taking a whole wrong turn and finding themselves 20 miles in the direction that they did not mean to go, and then correcting their route and getting on with where they want to go. So what if you make some side trips? Sometimes you see some interesting things along the way, you see.
This side trip has been full of bumpy roads.
Well, we understand that, but don't keep beating that drum.
Very
Instead
good.
of say, it's been a data collecting side trip.
Okay.
And I'm clear about many things than I was before. And maybe I needed this side trip in order to conclude what I really want. And maybe I really needed to have this dose of not being fully connected with who I am to make me focus that rock of the desire of how important it is for me to reconnect with who I am. And if I choose to be angry instead of depressed, then good for me. And if I choose to be annoyed instead of angry, then good for me. And I have control of the way I feel. And while I cannot make this pain go away today, I do have measures of control. And eventually this pain will go away. That's the stance that you're wanting to take. And it is our absolute promise that it is true.
I love it. Thank you.
So many of you have had experiences where things have seemed so dark and horrible, and now they're not. You've come out the other side and you're doing wonderfully, and you can hardly even remember being there. In other words, you've got photographs with that look on your face, and there are some things that make you remember it, but it is our promise to you that this cannot last because it is not who you are, and even if it does last a little longer, that's okay too. One of the things that we have accomplished, a sort of side not benefit in teaching you that you are the creator of your own reality, is we've made you paranoid about the realities that you are creating. And so now you're beating up on yourself as your realities are not perfect. And we say you are a constant work in progress and you're doing extremely well.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Yes, indeed. We want very much for you, as you are contemplating the science of deliberate creation, or even softer and easier to apply idea of the art of allowing, we want you to focus for just a little while on the well-being that is your legacy and on the abundance that is potentially there for you to experience. And if you will relax for just a little while and say to yourself many times over the next few days, I really do not want all of the good that is coming to me to arrive at the same moment. I like the way it is flowing into my experience so that I can explore it and experience it as it comes. And that attitude of enjoying the delicious nature of the ever-unfolding good that is flowing will cause you to relax more and allow a stronger and stronger and stronger quantity of it. You are doing extremely well. As we acknowledge the lifestyles that you are living, we applaud the expectation that you have garnered from your time-space reality. And we acknowledge that you are leading-edge thinkers trying to fine-tune and bring yourself into even greater creative control of your experience. But we really want you to hear us and feel us when we say, you have done enough pre-planning and pre-thinking to line up 10 or 20 lifetimes for yourself. And it really is the time to start basking and relaxing and reveling in the good that is coming. And a little bit of that will open the floodgates beyond your wildest dreams. There is so much that is lined up outside your door in response to the things that you have been asking for. And we are planning to take great delight in your recognizing of it as it flows into your individual experience. There is great love here for you. We are complete.